sing a song for how long? A while? Years up. It's called The Day You Wore My Crown. Please wait as I attempt to sing it. Okay. The city was Jerusalem. The time was long ago. The people called him Jesus. The crime was that he loved him so. And I'm the one to blame. I caused all the pain. He gave himself the day he wore my crown. He brought me love that only he could give. I brought him cause to cry. And though he taught me how to live, I only taught him how to die. I'm the one to blame. I caused all the pain. He gave himself the day he wore my crown. He could have called his holy father and said, take me away, oh please take me away. He could have said, I'm not guilty and I'm not going to stay. I'm not going to pay. I'm not going to pay. But he walked right through that gate. The whole Calvary's hill. And as he fell beneath the weight, he cried, Father, not my will. I'm the one to blame. I caused all his pain. He gave himself the day he wore my crown. I'm the one to blame. I caused all his pain. He gave himself the day he wore my crown. Right. Well, I tell you, I really do wish I could sing the fraction that good, but I sound like a dying cat. Well, I want to say one more time, good morning to everybody. Good morning to all. And we are now able to successfully stream live on YouTube in the session that's today. So good morning to the camera. It feels weird when you talk to a camera, but we have them now. We get to see that way. Whenever we got all the people that are traveling, we have a lot of people who can't be here every Sunday. So now they get to be a part of it too. So we're making leaps and bounds, and we have neighbors right across the way, and they have requested that we get sermons available for them as well. And we're going to be jumping on that too. So hopefully this will be the way, but if not, we will find a way to reach that nursing home across the street for all those wonderful children of the Lord. That's good. That's good stuff. Well, last Sunday, we began a journey, the journey towards Calvary. And we finished it on a high note. Jesus rode a donkey to Jerusalem. He was on a highway of advantage. Everything was great. Sunday night, we shared the Lord's Supper. We shared a meal together, had some fellowship, and it was a really good time. And it was enjoyable. Everyone seemed to have a great time. I liked it. Time with everybody. Just get to love on each other a little bit. I think that's always good. But today, our journey takes us to where it all began. It all began in a garden. And the disciples went to the garden with Jesus. Jesus stops them short. And he says, wait here and pray. And then he takes Peter and James and John and he goes just a little bit farther in. And he turns to the disciples and says powerful words. He says, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watching. Now, the disciples might not have understood everything that was going on, but Jesus was in agony. He said that his soul was in sorrow to the point of death. It felt like he was hurting. Has anybody in here ever felt that kind of pain? Where your heart is just breaking, it's hurting, you can only cry, you don't know how to speak, it just hurts, you feel like you're going to die. When Jesus says these words, he's in agony. So he leaves the disciples there and he goes just a little bit farther in. And he falls on his face. Now these next words, don't look at them and read them like it's just words in a story. Understand the pain that Jesus was in at this point. He falls on his face, and in Luke 22 he says, my Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will. See, Jesus knows the Scriptures. He knows them because he's the one that planned them. He knows everything that's getting ready to happen. So he didn't just walk up and drop to his knees. He walked up and he fell on his face. He instantaneously hits the ground. He is suffering at this point. He's hurting. But he was willing to embrace God's will. And the book of Luke tells us in verse 43 and verse 44 that an angel appeared to him and ministered to him, strengthening him. And being in agony, he was praying very fervently, and his sweat became like drops of blood falling to the ground. It seems like descriptive. They were like drops of blood. But it's not a descriptive. It's not a descriptive saying that his sweat was thick. There's a medical condition that only happens in extreme anxiety moments. It's very rare. It's called hematidrosis, blood sweat. Guys, Jesus' blood was coming out of his sweat glands in the garden. I think it's safe to say that he was in agony and that he was suffering long before he was arrested. Because Jesus knew exactly what was going to happen. We know that he knew this because in John chapter 18, verse 4, Jesus, knowing all that was going to happen to him, met those who came to arrest him. He knew everything. He knew every lash. He knew every beating. He knew everything that was going to happen in the garden. And as the group comes up, Judas walks up and gives him that little kiss on the cheek. And Judas kissed. Jesus knew what it was. He even said it. He said, do what you come to do. And he goes out and he says, who do you see? To his captors. And the captors say, we see Jesus of Nazareth. And something really awesome happened. Jesus says 3 little words. He says, I am he. And the moment he says, I am he, the Roman guards, everybody, they drew back and fell to the ground. The guards fell backwards. But it wasn't like, oh, I'm falling backwards. It was like that. When he says, I am he, it is a glimpse of his divine power. It is a glimpse of his divine strength. It's a glimpse of just how strong the word is, because just at a revelation, just at a momentary glimpse of the power of the spoken word of God, the Roman soldiers were thrown backward and slammed into the ground. That's pretty powerful. Just 3 words. I am he. But I want you to notice this. Take notice of this. It all began in the garden. It didn't begin here. It all began in the garden. See, in the Garden of Eden, mankind was plunged into the bondage of sin. In the Garden of Gethsemane, our Savior was willingly bound and led to break that bondage. It all started in the garden. So Jesus went willingly with those who come for him. They couldn't took him. Couldn't done. They took him, and they took him to the Sanhedrin. You know, those wonderful people, the Pharisees. They love Jesus. They take him there. And they start trying to find accusations. What can we do to accuse this man? To have him put to death. That's their goal from the very beginning. What can we do to have this man put to death? So they start searching. They start asking, hey, does anybody know what this man has said that we can use to try him for death? Matthew 26:16. And a man declares, hey, this fellow said, I'm able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in just 3 days. It's not what Jesus said. Jesus said, destroy this temple and I will build it in 3 days. No, see, they're misquoting him. They're using his own words and trying to use them against him. They're saying, he said he'll destroy the whole temple in 3 days and build it back up. And the Pharisees and the high priest, they say, did you say that? And Jesus remains silent. Then the high priest gets really mad about him, and he demands an answer. He says, are you the Christ? It doesn't matter what Jesus would have said at this point. Jesus could have said anything at all. He could have said, no, not him. He could have said, yeah, not him. It doesn't matter what he said, because they were out of blood. Remember at the triumph and entry, they'd already determined that they were going to kill Jesus. And Jesus turns and looks at the high priest as calmly as he can be, and says, it is that as you say. It is that as you say. And at that moment, the high priest does a symbol that is often understood. He tears his own garment. Most people think he tears Jesus' clothes. No, he tears his own garment, because in Leviticus, when the high priest was in the presence of blasphemy, they would rip their own garment. They would say blasphemy. And at that moment, all those around him start saying the same thing. They say, he is worthy of death. Jesus committed blasphemy, so the Pharisees said. Even though he's telling the truth, the Pharisees are blind. All they want to do is have him killed. And all the people around, they say, he is worthy of death. They were saying that, saying they supported the crucifixion of him, that they supported the execution of him. But isn't it interesting? They're talking about Jesus, and they said, he is worthy of death. Oh, how right they were. There's no other sacrifice that ever could have been made that would have been worthy. So yes, he was worthy of death. He was worthy of sacrifice. And he was the only sacrifice worthy. They didn't realize it. That's what they were saying. They didn't know. So with false intentions, they drag him from that moment, from that place of the Sanhedrin to a man known as Pilate. Now see how it was would have been kind of similar to the setup here, only he'd have been much higher up. Pilate would have been kind of high up. The Romans, they like big, grand things. And the crowd would have been on the ground on a very low level. Pilate would come out and hear this noise of people coming into his courtyard. And as they took Jesus up there to him, Pilate might have been a little bit confused about what was going on. I don't know what Pilate was doing for it. But the Pharisees, they deliver Jesus to him. The high priest is part of that group. And Pilate says, well, are you the king of the Jews? Jesus says, it is as you say. And the moment he says that, the crowd starts chanting and they start yelling accusations at him. And like any normal person, you would expect there to be a defense of oneself. But Pilate is amazed that Jesus stands silent. He doesn't try to defend himself. Pilate, he knows something is different. He knows something very special about Jesus. See, we don't know exactly what all Pilate knew, but Pilate knew that the only reason that the high priest and the Pharisees brought Jesus to him is told to us right there in Matthew 27:18. Pilate knew that for envy, it was out of envy that they handed Jesus over to him. Pilate looked at it and he said, this man does. And I know he does. How do we know that he knew that there was something special about Jesus? The very next verse tells us that. Pilate's wife sends him a message, says, don't have anything to do with this innocent man, for I've had great suffering today in a dream because of him. We don't know exactly when in the process Pilate got that message, but judging by verse 18, he must have got it over. So as Pilate was sitting there, and he sees this innocent man brought to him, he knew that Jesus was innocent. I think Pilate's often looked at a little bit wrong. They always look at him like he was a cruel man, but the scriptures don't tell me that. The scriptures tell me that he was looking for justice, and he couldn't find anything wrong with Jesus. Over and over again, it'll show that. Over and over again. So he said, you know what? I don't want nothing to do with hurting this innocent man. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring out a murderer. That's what Pilate says. He says, I get to pardon somebody once a year. I'm going to bring out Barabbas. He's a murderer. He's an insurrectionist. Nothing but a troublemaker. There's no way they're going to want Barabbas over this innocent man. So he brings him out. And he brings them all forward. And he says, well, who do you want? Do you want Barabbas? Or do you want Jesus? I'm pretty sure they're going to pick Jesus. Much to his surprise, the Pharisees, the high priest, they're in the crowd, and they're stirring the crowd up, and they got the crowd shouting Barabbas, of all names. Barabbas. The crowd wants a murderer. So Pilate's taken back a little bit. Pilate looks and he says, well, what do you want me to do with Jesus? You guarantee the devil was in the crowd at this point. He had them all chanting, crucify him. Oh, how changed it would have been to that. Wasn't it just last Sunday we were talking about the whole world was following Jesus, the Pharisees said. The whole world, everybody, a city full of people chanting Hosanna. Oh, how things have changed. Now here they are today standing in Pilate's chamber. And instead of asking Jesus to save them, they're asking Pilate to crucify him. Crucify him. Crucify him. All that was blood. It didn't matter. Matthew 23, verse 34. When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but instead, notice there was an uproar starting. He took water and he washed his hands in front of the crowd. And he said, I am innocent of this man's blood. This is a symbol. This is a sign. Whenever in the Middle East they do this, still to this day, if they are done with something, they're saying, I'm washing my hands. And it's symbolic. He's saying, no, this man's blood is not on me. I have nothing left to do with this. I'm through with this. Because I'm not going to do anything. And the crowd starts getting that much more violent, that much rougher. And he says, you know what? I'll have him scourged, but I'm not going to crucify him. Now, scourging is violent. Make no mistake about it, Jesus suffered during scourging. The Romans had no set standard as far as how scourging would be. In Jewish tradition, Jesus would only get 39 lashes. But see, Romans weren't Jews. It all really depended on just how cruel and vile the Roman guard who was in charge of it would be. It all depended on how cruel and vile it would be, just what kind of weapon he would use. See, the scourge was simple. It was a 3-stranded whip, short whip. But at the very end of it could be anything from bones to metal balls to rocks. And they were hidden in the back. They were tying to this post. They were whipping. And through this process, it wouldn't just simply be like a bullwhip. It would dig in, it would rip out, it would pull. It could break bones. It could hurt the internal organs. There's actually accounts in Roman history that people's organs fell out, their bones broke, and people died right there in the scourging. We're told in Isaiah chapter 52 that his appearance was so disfigured beyond that of any human being, and his form marred behind any human likeness. When they got done at this stage, you wouldn't have been able to identify him. They beat him over and over again. But it wasn't over at the scourging. When the scourging was finished, John 19 tells us the soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head. And they clothed him in a purple robe and went up against him, saying, Hail, the King of the Jews. And they would slap him in the face. They took a stick and they beat him in the head over and over again. So often we look at the crucifixion and we say, he died for me. We don't look at what happened beforehand. He was suffering in the garden, sweating drops of blood. He was beaten right here. He was whipped. He was mauled. He was smacked, ridiculed, spit on. And he did it willingly. We don't know how long it went. There's no timeline here. It didn't say 15 minutes. It didn't say 30 lashes. It just says they did it. And the words they used said they did it over and over again. And it was finally done. Pilate came out and said to the Jews, Look, I'm bringing him out to you to let you know that I have found no basis of charge against him, and yet I scourged him. So Jesus is standing there, bloody and beaten. And he's saying, I did this and I found no charge. Be happy with it. That's what Pilate's saying right here. The crowd wasn't happy with it. Because the devil wanted nothing more than death. The high priest, inspired by the devil, wanted nothing more than death. The Pharisees, who wanted nothing more than to not have anything left of this man, wanted nothing more than death. Then Pilate gave over to be crucified by them. And he was so weak at this point that he couldn't carry his own cross. You're looking at a being that would have been well over 150 pounds. I looked one time at the distance that it's estimated that Jesus would have had to carry this being. And depending on where he was at this point, it's anywhere from half a mile to a mile. And he's beaten, he's bloody, we don't know his entire medical condition, but we know that he's been changed beyond recognizability. He can't be recognized anymore. And now he's got to carry this 150-pound cross to a place that we all know. He was so weak that they had to grab a man named Simon and have him help Jesus carry the cross. That tells you something. He was so weak he couldn't do it. And the Romans were so vile and cruel that they would grab anybody. You're part of the punishment now. I'll tell you something about how cruel and vile these people were. They forced him to carry it up to Golgotha, the place of the skull. They walked him up there with two other sinners, and there they crucified him. They nailed his hands, they nailed his feet. And it's so amazing that this man Jesus, this wonderful Savior, that while he was up there, Luke 23:34 tells us, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they are doing. Even now, hanging on a cross and been beaten and been bloody, when it took everything upon him, he's still praying for the people that are doing it to him. When everyone else would be trying to fight him, he never tried to fight him. Instead, he prayed for him. Instead, he continued loving him. And then he had, as we read in the responsive reading, he had a sinner on one side who was calling out against him, making fun of him, mocking him. Even while being nailed to a cross, the man was evil. And then the other one, someone that we should all be able to recognize them too, was nailed on that cross beside him. And he said, no, don't you know this man is innocent? I'm guilty and I've heard what's happening to me. But he's innocent. And he says, remember me when you enter your kingdom. Oh, and Jesus, so full of compassion, so wonderful, such a miraculous Savior. I tell you the truth, today you will be with me in paradise. Jesus continued to offer salvation at that point. That's so cool. No matter what happened, Jesus always offered salvation. Still offers salvation to this day. I want you to pay close attention to what the words of Matthew 27 say. About 3 in the afternoon, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Allah, Allah, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? At this moment, right here, for just a split second, Jesus is expressing the alienation that he is experiencing from God. For just a moment, he gets the Father's full wrath. All the wrath of God laying down on his own son. For a moment, for a split second, Jesus has been with the Father ever since the beginning. Since before the earth was ever thought to be into existence. Before anything, Jesus was with the Father. And here at this moment, to receive the full weight of sin, to cleanse it forever, God looked away. I want you to think about that. Talking about the man who has known the love of the Father continually without ever a second. And at this moment, the Father has to look away. I imagine the thoughts that go through my head here is that the Father was looking at him and realized for a moment he's got to take his eyes off of somebody that he loves more than him. I imagine knowing that for Jesus, he's looking up, trying to see his Father's face shining down on him, giving him the comfort that he's always had in every moment, forever. And for that moment, his Father not looking at him. know what pain would be like to have that. But what I do know is that when I read those words, it's not just words, it's a fact that Jesus, who was always with the Father, for a split second must have had a heartbreak because he was no longer. You think about having all that love with you all the time, what kind of sacrifice that must have been, what kind of hurt that must have been. And then John 19 tells those three words that mean so much. John 19 says, when Jesus therefore received the vinegar, he said, it is finished. And he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. Those three words mean a whole lot more than it is simply finished. What is finished? The work is finished. What he had finally come here to do, it was finished. The law, sacrificing, that's finished. Your sin, that's finished. See, the moment of Jesus' death, that's the moment of our salvation. The moment he gave up his spirit willingly is the moment we were saved. That's it right there. It is finished. Bondage over sin gone. Everything that was ever holding you back gone. Any moment you think that Jesus was holding out on you, that God was holding out on you, right there, it's finished. It's gone. He's not holding out on you. He loves you enough to do that right now. And they laid Jesus in an empty tomb. Joseph and Nicodemus. They prepared Jesus' body. They wrapped him in linen. They covered him in 70 pounds of incense and myrrh and aloe. All around talking. They laid his body in the temple. This might seem like a low point in the story. For the disciples, it probably was a pretty low point. Here, they have Jesus. They said he's the Messiah. He's the Son of God. Surely nothing bad will ever come to him. Jesus denied it 3 times. The disciples scattered. At this point, they're probably in hiding, terrified because the Romans, what if they crucify us too? Seems like a pretty low point in the story. The Messiah was dead. But the good thing is, and we don't say it, the story's not over. I always wondered what it would have been like to do. I know the ending of the story. You know the ending of the story. What do we do? How much more precious would Easter be if we didn't know that there was going to be an Easter? How much more precious would that have been? I want you to think about it. The Son of God willingly entered the city where he picked up his cross. The Son of God spent time with his friends for a last time. Well, how would you spend your last days? It's always a question that people ask for. If it was your last week, how would you live it? Jesus spent it with friends. He went and he taught. In his last days, he wanted to spend it with his friends. He went to the garden with them. Isaiah 53:5 says, he was pierced for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities, and the punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed. Those words should have a whole new meaning today as you think about everything that Jesus went through. And he did it willingly for his friends and for you. John 15:13, God love, greater love has none than this, to lay down one's life for his friends. You have a friend in Jesus. You have a Savior in Jesus. You have a friend in Jesus. He laid his life down for you because he knows everybody by name. It says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. But it's so much more than that. It's not all the world as a whole. It's a very personal world. Everybody in it. He doesn't want to see anyone, all right? He wants to see you. That's why you have a friend in Jesus. And he loves you. And I tell you this, if you don't know Jesus, don't leave here today without knowing him. And if you're not right with Jesus, don't leave here today not right with you. I don't care what it takes. If I gotta sit here until 2 o'clock in the morning, I'll sit here at 2 o'clock in the morning helping you get right with you. He loves you, and I don't want anything less than you to know his entire love. Will you please pray?